Well, we're in the Yamacraw area of Savannah, and we're standing just outside the Georgia Railroad Museum, and we're actually at the Patriots Park, where a very serious battle had taken place. And so in this episode of Historical Markers, we're going to look at the other markers around the Yamacraw area and see what happened in this park. So stay tuned and like, subscribe, and let's see the markers in this area. The William Scarbrough House, designed by noted English architect William J. This house was built for William Scarbrough, president of the Savannah Steamship Company. Completed in 1819, it is an excellent example of the neoclassical style. Scarbrough hosted President James Monroe here in May of 1819. During the president's visit to witness the launching of the SS Savannah on the world's first transatlantic steamship voyage. For 84 years, 1878 to 1962, the house served as the West Broad Street School for African American Children, and later as the headquarters for the historic Savannah Foundation from 1976 to 1991. In 1996, the house was acquired by the Ships of the Sea Maritime Museum. This is now part of the Ships of the Sea Maritime Museum. Savannah's African American medical pioneers. African American physician Cornelius McCain was born in British Guiana and began medical practice in Savannah in 1892. Alice Woodby McCain came to Georgia that same year, the only black female physician in the state at the time. After marrying in 1893, the couple established McCain Training School for Nurses at this location, one of the first such schools in the region. In 1895, they moved to Monrovia, Liberia, where they helped organize several healthcare facilities. There, Alice McCain worked as a U.S. medical examiner for expatriate Civil War veterans. After their return to Savannah in 1896, they founded the McCain Hospital for Women and Children, later Charity Hospital. The McCains permanently left Savannah in 1909, relocating in Boston. The Great Indian Warrior Trading Path, the Great Philadelphia Wagon Road. The most heavily traveled road in colonial America passed through here, linking areas from the Great Lakes to Georgia. Laid on animal trails and Native American trading warrior paths, treaties among the governors of New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, and 19 chiefs of the Iroquois League of Five Nations. In 1865 and 1722, opened the colonial backcountry for peaceful settlement and colonization in Georgia. The path had two branches from the Carolina, the western branch to Augusta, and the eastern to Savannah, formed to find salt and game. Continuing here in the Yamacraw district is the First Bryan Baptist Church, constituted in 1788. First Bryan dates its founding to the constitution of the Ethiopian Church of Jesus Christ under Reverend Adnrew Bryan in January of 1788, making it one of the nation's oldest African American Baptist churches. Known later as the First Colored Church, First African, and Third African, the congregation took the name First Bryan Baptist in 1867. Constructed of the first church building began here in 1793 on property purchased by Reverend Bryan. The current building was completed in 1874. First Bryan ministers, including Garrison Frazier and Ulysses Houston, attended the nearby meeting of local black leaders with General Sherman in January of 1865. That resulted in Special Field Orders number 15, promising confiscated coastal land to freed slaves. In the 20th century, civil rights leader W.W. Law taught Sunday school at First Bryan for many years. And let's back up and take a look at the church here. There's the church today. The birthplace of John C. Fremont, one of two native Georgians who served as general in the U.S. Army during the Civil War, John C. Fremont was born nearby on January 21, 1813. As an Army officer, his 1840s explorations of the American West gained him fame as the Pathfinder. During the U.S.-Mexican War, Fremont seized California for the U.S. and was elected one of the first senators in 1850. Opposed to slavery's expansion, he ran unsuccessfully in 1856 as the first Republican presidential candidate. During the Civil War, Fremont's 1861 proclamation freeing all Confederate-owned slaves in Missouri was annulled by President Lincoln. After lackluster performance as a combat commander, Fremont resigned from the U.S. Army in 1864. He later served as governor of the Arizona Territory from 1878 to 1881 and died in New York in 1890. This marker is for Adnrew Bryan. Adnrew Bryan was born at Goose Creek, South Carolina about 1716. He came to Savannah as a slave, and here he was baptized by the Negro missionary, the Reverend George Lyle, in 1781. Lyle evacuated with the British in 1782 at the close of the American Revolution, and Bryan took up his work. He preached at Yamacraw and at Brampton Plantation. On January 20th, 1788, the Reverend Abraham Marshall White and the Reverend Jesse Peter Colored ordained Adnrew Bryan and certified the congregation at the Brampton Barn as the Ethiopian Church of Jesus Christ. The Reverend Bryan moved from place to place with his congregation and was even imprisoned and whipped for preaching during a time when whites feared any slave gathering as a focus for rebellion. He persevered and finally bought his and his family's freedom and purchased this lot for his church. Adnrew Bryan pastored until his death, October 6, 1812. He is buried in Savannah's Laurel Grove Cemetery. This is the Yamacraw Square Public Art Project. There are many things listed here in this central section here. Telling all kinds of things about what happened in this area. Attack on British lines, October 9, 1779. Over this ground, hallowed by the valor and sacrifices of the soldiery of America and of France, was fought October 9, 1779, one of the bloodiest battles of the Revolution, when Savannah, which the British had possessed for several months, was attacked by the combined American and French forces. A short distance west of this marker stood the famous Spring Hill Redoubt, and along here ran the line of entrenchments built by the British around Savannah. After a 3-week siege, the Allies stormed the enemy works in this area early on October 9th. Arrayed in the opposing armies that day were soldiers of many lands, American Continentals, Grenadiers of Old France, Irishmen in the service of King Louis XVI, Polish Lancers, French Creoles, and Negro volunteers from Haiti, fighting for American independence against English redcoats, Scotch Highlanders, Hessians, Royalists, provincials from New York, Tory militia, armed slaves, and Cherokee Indians. After an heroic effort to dislodge the British and Allies, retired with heavy losses. Thus, the siege was lifted and the French fleet sailed from Georgia, ending an episode of far-reaching significance in the American Revolution. Once again, we're going to look over this park here. The Battle of Savannah. On this site, during one of the bloodiest hours of the American Revolution, the Battle of Savannah took place on the morning of October 9th, 1779. The battle resulted in approximately 150 British and roughly 1,000 American, French, and Allied casualties. During the weeks before the October 9th assault, the Allied forces laid siege to Savannah, including an unsuccessful bombardment, killing 30 to 40 women and children, but failed to dislodge the British. On October 9th, the Allies attempted a direct assault to capture the city. It was a dismal and bloody failure. Still, vital coordination and tactical lessons learned here informed the Americans' efforts and success at the decisive siege of Yorktown, which occurred 2 years later, almost to the day. The Battle of Savannah is among the most ethnically and racially diverse engagements of the war, illustrating the international and multi-ethnic nature of the American Revolution. It says here, upon this spot stood the Spring Hill Redoubt. Here on October 9th, 1779, one of the bloodiest engagements of the Revolution was fought when repeated assaults were made by the Allied troops of Georgia, South Carolina, and France in an effort to retake Savannah from the British. And across the way is now the Welcome Center. This memorial to the American Revolution was made possible through the generosity of the city of Savannah, Georgia, and all of these other people down below. And it says this flagpole was dedicated to the memory of Edward J. Durst Sr., 1896 to 1965. And then you can definitely hear the flag flapping in the breeze today. It is a breezy day. There's a mound in the middle of the park here. And the marker inside this mount says Savannah Beseiged. During parts of the Revolutionary War, Savannah was an armed camp. With the approach of an Allied French and American army in the fall of 1779, the British defenders of Savannah began improving and constructing a series of 14 redoubts outside the town and an equal number of cannon emplacements. The earth fortification called a redoubt was constructed in 2006 to remind us the sacrifices made here during a bloody battle for possession of the British-controlled royal capital of Georgia. Not only did the walls of the earth protect the men inside, but the musket and cannon fire of the defenders made the space between the redoubts deadly to many attackers. Should a breakthrough occur, hundreds of combat-hardened British infantry placed to the rear would charge and drive back the attackers. Bench honoring the soldiers who fought in the Battle of Savannah in 1779. The British withdrew July 11, 1782. This was placed by the Sons of the American Revolution. Revolutionary War Patriots. This marker commemorates the men and women who achieved American independence. These patriots, each believing in the noble cause of liberty, fought valiantly to found a new nation, 1775 to 1783. To arms. The 800 stones before you represents the approximate number of soldiers killed or wounded in Savannah on the foggy morning of October 9th, 1779. They are arranged as a column of 10 across to echo the shape of the 5 French and American columns of troops meant to attack the British redoubts here on the west end of the city. Inscribed on the stones are the names and stories of people from many of the states, countries, and cultures involved in the revolutionary struggle throughout the entire war. To your left stands a granite marker identifying the location of the Spring-Hilled Redoubt, one of the 14 British fortifications surrounding Savannah in 1779. Here, thousands of French and American soldiers and militia tried unsuccessfully to smash through crossfire and hundreds of British soldiers and loyalist militia inside the fortifications. The Allied columns were meant to attack together simultaneously in overwhelming force to retake Savannah from the British. Due to poor communication, they arrived separately, disoriented and tired from hours of marching. As the columns advanced, cannon and small arms crossfire killed and maimed the commanders and private soldiers alike. Spring Hill Redoubt became a scene of hand-to-hand combat with swords and bayonets clashing. And there's all the stone blocks. Here's a closer look at the hundreds of markers that they have placed here. There's no information on any of the markers. They're just representing the 800 plus people that died in this battle. Actually, some of these do have names. Here's Joseph Brant, 1743 to 1807. Richard Wayne, 1741 to 1809. Thomas Vickers. William Fighting Billy Timpton. Antione Marie. Colonel Joseph Habersham, David Alderman, Captain Hayman Critch, Jr., Abel Cook, Dr. Noble W. Jones, Joel Lane, Lieutenant Ambrose Gordon, Mills Murphy, Colonel John White, Robert Morris, Peter Tondy, Captain Charles Floyd, Major General Marie Joseph, Paul Eves Rock Gilbert Dumoutier, Marquis de Lafayette. That is a name. John Garnier Williamson, Barthélemy Pierre Gaspard Bastien de Vertrue, Thomas Nelson, John McCutcheon, Esther de Bertrede, Captain Abraham Shepard Lane, Major General Anthony Wayne, and as you can see, there are several others here that do have names on them. I'm not going to go through and read them all, but there are lots of names listed out here among these 800 blocks. And then down at the bottom, let's go across these. We have one for England, one for France, one for Germany, one for Haiti, one for Ireland, Poland, Scotland, and the United States of America. General Casimir Pulaski and Sergeant William Jasper. Near this spot, two notable heroes of the American Revolution were mortally wounded in the ill-fated assault by the American and French forces upon the British lines here on October 9, 1779. Brigadier General Casimir Pulaski, the famous Polish patriot, was fatally wounded by a grape shot as he rode forward into the heavy fire from the British defenses located in this area. Sergeant William Jasper fell a short distance west of this marker while attempting to plant the colors of the 2nd Regiment of South Carolina Continentals upon British entrenchments. To their memory and to the memory of the hundreds of gallant soldiers of the American and France, including the French Commander-in-Chief, Count d'Estaing, who shed their blood here in the cause of liberty, this marker is erected. And this is showing some more of the fortifications they would have had that the soldiers had to cross. The sign in front of this park here says October 9th, 1779, in memory of those who fought here. Well, I hope you learned something about the Battle of Savannah and the things that happened here in Patriots Park and the other areas of the Yamacraw area of Savannah. We'd like you to join us for the next episode of Historical Markers, so like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode of Historical Markers.